Welcome to Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church. You are in a wonderful place, holy ground, the oldest continuously parcel of property continuously controlled by persons of African descent in the capital of the American Empire. The ancestors who envisioned this place envisioned a place unlike other sanctuaries in the city, which were not truly sanctuaries. Because in order to be a sanctuary, a place must be open to all people. From its foundation, the ancestors who dreamt and built Metropolitan opened our doors for all people, and all people are welcome tonight. The great artist Melvin Van Peebles recorded a song, and the refrain of the song goes something like this: where can I be? This ain't America, is it? Where can I be? This ain't America, is it? I need us to know that what we are witnessing all around us, from down the street to the Capitol and the courts, what we are witnessing is extraordinarily American. It is as American as apple pie and baseball. Authoritarianism is American. From what happened to the indigenous, to what happened to the Africans, to what happened in the Confederacy, to what happened during Jim Crow, and now in AI Jim Crow 3.0, authoritarianism is American. W.E.B. Du Bois in 1890, at the age of 22, delivered the graduation address as he was nominated by Harvard's faculty. And he talked about Jefferson Davis. He wrote of a civilizational type, a messianic leader who promised salvation through domination, drawing legitimacy not from law or equality, but from charisma or the aura of power itself with populist support. In the midst of that reality, we come to celebrate art and artists because they lead the way to freedom. They lead the way to democracy. They lead the way to transformation. And to quote an artist my wife introduced me to, Tony Cade Bumbar, the purpose of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. By being a part of this festival tonight, we don't want you just to say you've been to Metropolitan or that you've heard Joy Reid or Eric Holder. We want you to leave being committed to the irresistibility of the revolution that we must create in this nation and across the world. This is not about entertainment alone, but this is about turning this system upside down. Thank you for your presence here tonight. Thank you for the energy you bring. And now after we have left this place, let people say that the folk left Metropolitan stirred up and committed to the irresistibility of the revolution. Thank you for being here tonight.
She is a dynamic advocate, having trained and worked with thousands through her work with the Children's Defense Fund and the University of Arkansas. Please welcome Jalea Lyles Dunn.
From Esther 4:14, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Greetings to all of you beautiful, beautiful people. Tonight, I have the honor of grounding us in what I call the spirit of justice. As we're witnessing in real time the birth and transition of a new system of control of Black and brown people through the whitewashing of history, deportation of immigrant communities, the rollback of civil rights protections, the weakening of public education, and the military takeover of Black-led cities, we must recognize that since the nation's founding, almost 250 years ago, control through institutions such as slavery, Jim Crow, and mass incarceration have been at play. And as while systems of control are challenged and collapsed, my friends, let's stay vigilant and knowing that the seeds for new institutions are always being sowed. The words of Mordecai sent to Esther in the palace, and the opening scripture reminds us that deliverance for the masses, the people most impacted by injustice, is the justice we must seek, as none of us are safe in our own palace. Tonight, as we connect as community, honor courage, and engage in conversation, we must also accept our own call to lead in the deliverance. As artists, scholars, readers, writers, speakers, teachers, conveners, connectors, and motivators, we've been assembled and called upon for such a time as this. This is our time, and we must meet the moment to uproot the weeds of racial caste and white supremacy and shape the multiracial, inclusive democracy that resistance and imagination throughout our history has shown us is possible. Let us refuse to struggle and fight in a system that was never designed for us, but to engage in a radical reconstruction of a system that meets our needs and restores our own humanity. Because the longer we allow the status quo to maintain and adapt, the stronger and bolder the systems of control become, thus enduring for generations to come. Tonight, let the spirit of justice evoke in you the urgency of now. Ignite our strategic and creative collective power, and let it comfort us with the assurance that we've been positioned and prepared for such a time as this. Ashe.
The Vivian Malone Courage Award is a biennial presentation of the March On Festival. Vivian Malone was the first African American to graduate from the University of Alabama. When she and James Hood went to register, segregationist Governor George Wallace famously stood in the schoolhouse door to try to prevent them. Through throngs of angry protesters, Vivian prevailed. We have asked a consummate actor and storyteller to commemorate both Vivian's spirit and that of tonight's awardee. You have enjoyed her work in dozens of screen and stage performances, up to and including last night's festival screening and town hall on the film Albany Road, in which she starred. She is also an acting teacher and coach, and delivered a powerful workshop yesterday to students at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts as part of the festival. The next voice you will hear is that of my new friend, the supremely talented Lisa Arundel.
Talking that you, meaning me, Mrs. Barnett, would need to go to Cairo and gather the information and witnesses yourself. And your train leaves at 8 p.m. this evening. Well, I said I absolutely will not go this evening. It is not convenient for me to leave my family at this time, and I was just criticized by several of our men saying that I always jump in too early and I don't give them a chance to do the work ahead of them. I am perfectly willing to allow them to do the work. Now, Cairo, just so you all know, is about 375 miles south of Chicago, where I was living at the time. And I just didn't want to have to do that evening. Well, Mr. Barnett looked at me and said, "You know as well as I do, Mrs. Barnett, the importance of gathering evidence. And if you're not going to do it, well, there's nothing more to be said." And he picked up his evening paper and left the table. Well, I picked up my baby girl and walked up the stairs, and as usual, I sang her, not only her to sleep, but I also sang myself to sleep lying there next to my baby girl. Just a little while later, though, I'm lying there and I feel myself being shaken and it's my little boy. He says, "Mama, Pa says it's time to go." I said, "Go where?" He said, "To Cairo. Papa says it's time to catch the train to Cairo." I said, "I told your father I am not going to Cairo. I don't see why I need to do the work that other people refuse to do." My little boy was 10 years old. He looked at me with those eyes of his. Then he looked at the night table next to me. Then he looked at the floor. He looked back up at me. He said, "Mother, if you don't go, nobody else will." I saw the face of my boy standing there reminding me of my duty. And I thought of that scripture that talks about the wisdom that comes out of the mouth of babes and sucklings. And I looked at my baby boy and I said, "Tell your father it is too late to go this evening. I will leave in the morning. It's better that I arrive in Cairo after sundown anyway." Next morning, all 4 of my children, along with my husband, accompanied me to the train station. And they saw me off on my journey. My children were very interested in seeing me start off. And I realized for the first time, my babies wanted me to leave home. That story for me was so moving because, well, you all know, you see. But the part that really got me, besides the child, was this husband and wife working together, teaching their children around the table, not hiding the truth of what was happening in the community from their babies, and that they were working together. I am so grateful that these women, that women from the 1890s, and then Vivian Malone in the 1950s, and now today, Joy Reid, continue to be truth tellers, continue to work, even when their comfort cannot be met. They take care of their community at all times. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Thank you all, and good evening, everyone. You know, this year is particularly meaningful for me because 2025 marks the 20th anniversary of my sister Vivian's passing. And not a day goes by that I don't think of her strength and her grace. This award, which previously the March on Washington allows me to give every year, keeps her spirit alive. It reminds all of us of the power of her conviction in the face of opposition. And when my husband Eric and I decided to do this award, we sort of thought about what we wanted the award to embody. And it's not just about accomplishment, that's a given. But the award is really about courage. And we wanted it to be rare. That's why this award is not given every year. We wanted to reserve this award for people who truly reflect Vivian's legacy. In the past, our inaugural Vivian Malone Courage Award was given to Ta-Nehisi Coates, whose words shaped our understanding of race and history. Our second award went to Congresswoman Lucy McBath, who turned unimaginable loss into a fight for justice. Nicole Hannah Jones, who revealed the truths of our nation's history with her best-selling book, The 1619 Project. And our last award went to Michelle Browder, whose art and activism gave voice to the silenced. Each of these people carried forth the spirit of courage, and tonight we add another remarkable name. And the award itself, believe it or not, is not a medal, it's not a plaque, it's a painting. And it was created by my dear friend, the late Avis Collins Robinson. Her art captures the beauty and defiance that I'm so sure that my sister would have loved. She would be so proud to see her work presented tonight. But our honoree, Joy Reid, my Delta Sigma Theta soror, Joy's courage is evident every time she tells the truth, even when it's unpopular. She refuses to be silenced. She amplifies unheard voices. And in these times when truth is under siege, Joy stands steady, fearless, and unwavering. And it is with profound pride that I am here to say that Joy Ann Reid, Vivian would have loved you. And I want to say thank you to my friend Robert Rabin here, because Robert is the man that makes things happen. And I want to say thank you to all of the people at March On, to Isasara and to Kim and to all of the volunteers here who make this event so special. And I also want to acknowledge my niece, Vivian's daughter, Dr. Monica Jones, who looks exactly like her mother. And Monica, I want you to know that your mother's legacy lives on in you. And I don't ever want to be the person that's accused of getting in the way between you and the main event. So I'm going to leave this with saying how incredibly honored I am that all of you took the time to come out this evening. And thank you. And I'm going to give now, I think there is going to be a film that gives you a little snippet of actually who my sister really was. So thank you so much for coming out.
Vivian Malone Jones grew up in the segregated southern city of Mobile, Alabama. She knew early on in life that she wanted to make a change in the world she lived in.
Not being able to drink out of fountains, you can't try on hats, you can't ride on the bus where you wanted to. I mean, these things have happened to us all of our lives. And the way I felt, if I could do anything to help alleviate this in this nation, I felt that I should be, I should do that.
So what Jones did was enroll at the University of Alabama in 1963.
So there were a number of reasons why it just seemed to make sense to me that this was an appropriate thing for me to do at that time.
The only problem for Jones was the fact that Alabama Governor George Wallace ran his 1962 campaign on the issue of keeping the University of Alabama segregated.
Say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
But Wallace's words would not deter Jones.
I had done everything that a citizen of the state of Alabama could do to attend what I considered its best university.
However, Wallace would fight the enrollment of Jones and her fellow African-American student James Hood with his now infamous stand in the schoolhouse door. Jones did go on to become the first African-American graduate of the University of Alabama in 1965. But she says much of her time in school at Alabama was somewhat isolated.
More often than not would be for someone to share or say something to you, and then you would see them and you kind of get ready to speak and they turn their head and go the other way.
Surprisingly, the stand in the schoolhouse door incident only evokes tears for Jones once. That's when she watched a movie about George Wallace and saw someone else portraying her.
When I saw her, as she portrayed me, I could take myself out of the picture and see that a little bit differently. And that's been only a few years ago that I saw her and I thought, oh my God, that really was a terrible thing to do to somebody.
However, Jones says she never had any hard feelings toward Wallace. In fact, the two of them met again not too long before Wallace died in 1998.
I think it was more for him because he was really, really ill at that point in time, and I think he wanted some reconciliation also.
Jones retired from the Environmental Protection Agency in Atlanta and is currently writing a book about her experience as a civil rights pioneer. And she is aware of the legacy she's left behind at the University of Alabama.
I was just one person, but I think of the thousands of people that have come after me, and I would just like to think that their road might have been a little bit easier.
Jones often gets the opportunity to speak to young people. And when she does, she challenges them to step up, like she did, and help solve the problems that still exist today. In Tuscaloosa, I'm Bill McDaniel reporting.
This is very overwhelming. I want to first obviously thank my soror, my sweet soror, the founder obviously of the Delta Sigma Theta chapter at Harvard University. I would say one of the co-founders, one of the 11 co-founders of that chapter that I was too broke to pledge, but came in another way. So thank you so much to Dr. Malone and to the beautiful Dr. Joe. I mean, meeting you, I have to say, you're the twin of your mom. Who was just so wonderful, and getting the chance to just talk with you and get to know you, such an honor. What an honor. Your mother was such an incredible human being. I want to thank the pastor of this historic and beautiful church. Just standing in this space is such an honor. It is just such a privilege to be in the company of the previous honorees. This could not be a more prestigious honor. Thank you. Just to be in their company, to be mentioned in the same breath as your mom is just overwhelming for me. So I just am so grateful. I'm so grateful to what she did for us. To be mentioned in the same breath as Ida B. Wells, overwhelming. So I want to thank just their legacy, the spirit, for having me in this space right now. Also the students that we were able to meet earlier. Where are the students that we met earlier? Are they here? I want to thank them. Stand up, students. Stand up, students. This is the future. I'm so proud of them. And to Anna Rima, congratulations on the film. So those are my congratulations and thanks. And I'll just say very briefly before I sit down with my friend, former Attorney General Holder. So make America great again. I have a history of being somewhat controversial, so I started with that. But I start with that as I was thinking about what to say in receiving this honor in the name that has the name Vivian Malone on it, and her courage and what she did. Make America great again. No one ever questioned America's greatness when we were a slave empire. You never heard anyone question America's greatness when they were ending Reconstruction with the Redemption Movement and the Redeemers were putting on Klan uniforms and white robes in order to frighten black people away from the polls and away from registering to vote. No one questioned whether America was great when they were lynching black men in their World War I and World War II uniforms. Nobody said that we needed to make America great again. Everyone acknowledged, at least in the majority community, that it was great. You never heard the majority say that we needed to make America great again when it was effectively legal to kill black people, which was the first 200 and some odd years of this country. Even at the time when Vivian Malone was taking that incredible brave stand to segregate a university in the late middle part of the 20th century, at that time, nobody questioned whether America was great. When a housewife could arrive at a college campus to spit on a 19 or 20-year-old woman for dressing up in her best and trying to go to school. Nobody questioned whether America was great when angry housewives showed up to scream at 6-year-old children who were trying to go to school. Nobody said that America wasn't great at that time. America only saw its greatness questioned when we began to demand our rights. You have to realize that the questioning of America's greatness came alongside Black demands for liberation and for equality. It was our questioning of why we didn't have the ability to go to the schools we wanted to, or to have the jobs we wanted, or to live in the neighborhoods we wanted. Then people said, well, maybe America isn't great. And they didn't say it wasn't great because we didn't have equality. They said it was great because we began to achieve it. Every one of our achievements has caused the majority to question America's greatness. Every time that we were able to win in the Supreme Court, to win these victories in colleges, to win these victories, suddenly people started to question America's greatness because they had to share America with us. And so when I see those videos and I see those pictures of Vivian Malone presenting herself for what should have been the most easy and natural thing that a young person can do. When I arrived at the campus of Harvard University, walking onto that campus was as easy as going to a movie, which I could also do without worrying about segregation. But to be alone, just two Black young people, to walk onto a campus where people were screaming the most vile things at you, spitting on you, refusing to sit near you, isolating you as if you had the plague, as if you were a plague, leaving you alone, essentially, and isolated for 4 long years as you tried to study. Teachers putting you down, not being willing to recognize your genius, which is the very genius that got you through the door. The harm that your mom endured on behalf of us, she did it as a young woman. And so many young people, the young people who stood up, you're walking onto college campuses as if it's the easiest thing to do in the world. But what your mom did was the hardest thing to do in the world, and she did it almost by herself. And so I think we need to really sit back and sit with the fact that it was Vivian Malone getting to go to the University of Alabama that is what caused white Alabamians to question if America was truly great. The fact that she got to sit in that classroom to them meant America wasn't great. And this wasn't 100 years ago. This was 5 years before I was born. Ruby Bridges just walked in. We were talking about her walking in a fashion show. She's 71, not 101. And so I'm going to sit down, I'm going to stop here, but I just want to say that we need to understand that the demands to make America great again are demands to resubjugate us. They're demands to put us in what they believe is our place, for us to stop demanding that we get to be in the spaces where they are and to get to have the things that they have and the things that we've earned. They want to rip our history away. They want to hide it. They want to destroy it. They want to mow it down, not because our history isn't great, but because they fear our greatness. They fear that our greatness diminishes the lies that America has always told itself. So I want to thank you all for this award. This award means everything to me. It is actually the most beautiful thing that I have received. I've received a lot of lovely awards, and I'm not trying to down the NAACP Image Awards. God bless the NAACP Image Awards. I love getting those too, and all of the things that I've received. But this one feels so much from the heart of a family that I revere. And so I want to thank you all so much. I put myself in the Evers family. I'm adding myself to yours as well. Thank you. I will add myself. That's a West Indian thing. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you. I love you, and thank you.
Good evening. You know, it's interesting. We were speaking to the younger people before, and I was saying, this is really interesting. I've been on Joy's show any number of times, and she's interrogated me. And now, I get to ask the questions. That was a wonderful statement. One thing I think comes immediately to mind is like, all right, tell me a little about who you are. Harvard, okay, that's fine. But you didn't go from the womb to Harvard. So where were you born? I know you had a Brooklyn connection, New York in the house. That's cool. But you had a Midwest component to your life. So tell me about that.
So yes, and I'm going to start off this now. Be kind in this interview. As nice as I was always kind. We promised he was going to be nice.
They're just me and you talking. Just like us talking. Nobody else is here.
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. Brooklyn in the house. My parents were immigrants to this country. My mother came from Guyana. Any Guyanese people in the house? Guyana Posse, GT Posse. My father was from Democratic Republic of Congo. Weirdly enough, they met in Iowa. Because they each separately came to the U.S., which was trying to attract young black folks from these newly emerging independent countries. That's how my father got here. Same program that brought Barack Obama's dad here. My father came on that program as well. He wound up in Iowa. My mother somehow wound up in Iowa. That's where they met. I was born in Brooklyn. My sister was born in Iowa. And then when I was 2 years old, my parents were not together anymore, at least temporarily. We moved to Denver, Colorado, because my mother had helped through the immigration system. She had helped get all of her siblings and her siblings' children, and she was bringing all the Guyanese people here. And then it was just like too many Guyanese in one neighborhood. And she's like, let me get away from these people and move across the country. She brought them all here. There she was like, peace out. We moved to Denver. That's where I grew up. I went to high school at Montbello, junior, senior high school in Denver, Colorado. I applied from there, and I ended up at Harvard from there.
All right. And then you end up in Florida at some point, yes?
I ended up in Florida. People think I'm from Florida. I'm not. Right. I do not claim Florida. I mean, it's a weird place. But yes, it's a weird place. I try not to claim it. I, love some of my friends there. But I graduated. I actually went to Harvard as a pre-med. I got into Harvard, and for those who don't believe affirmative action is valid and viable, I actually got into Harvard and Yale and Brown and the University of Denver and Vassar, just saying. So affirmative action was trying to get smart people who were actually eligible. So I chose Harvard. I went in as a pre-med. Unfortunately, my mom passed away about 22 days before I started school, which completely interrupted and kind of ruined my experience. And I failed my first class. I never had gotten below a C. The only C I'd ever gotten was in typing in high school. And Philomena, my mom, literally drove almost 2 hours from Greeley, where she was an associate professor at university, at the university up there, drove 2 hours to yell at the teacher who gave me a C. Because she's, you're ruining the child transcript, you're gonna ruin it. She did a whole West Indian crazy lady thing. So I had never gotten below a C, and suddenly I was so depressed and just out of sorts. I was failing classes. So I said, let me take a step back. I took a year off. I moved back to East Flatbush with my Auntie Dolly, and I had to figure out what I was gonna do. And halfway through my year off, I moved out of my auntie's house because I was a Methodist and she was a evangelical Christian, which meant 4 nights a week of church, and that was a lot of church for me. So I ended up getting a little apartment in Fort Greene, and it was like Brooklyn Bohemia. Spike Lee was in the neighborhood. People were making films. Missy Elliott had a thing down the street. I was in that realm of film. Went back, switched my major to film. So I ended up not being a pre-med. I don't even know what your question was. I forgot.
Well, no. I'm listening to all this and wondering, well, how the heck did you end up in journalism? I mean, tell me a little about that. Are you're back at Harvard? You're hanging out with Spike Lee and Missy Elliott. You're a rap star, maybe. I don't know.
He didn't even know who I was.
Oh yeah. So how do you end up? What is it about who you were that made push you towards journalism?
So when I was growing up, if you are the child of a West Indian and you say at any point in your youth, I want to be a doctor, you get locked in. Right. So I had made the mistake of saying that to my mom, but my heart really wasn't in, being a pre-med, but she had a future lawyer, and a future architect, my younger brother. So she was the happiest person in the world. But when I went back and I didn't want to do that, I had to figure out what I was going to actually do when I went back to Harvard. And growing up, I had always been a news junkie. My mom was too. And we would sit up and we would watch the news every night. She let me stay up later than my sister and brother, because I was watching the news. And I got really focused in the 6th grade, aging myself, when the hostages were taken by those students in Iran. And I sat up and I watched this show that became Nightline. I would watch it every night, my mom and I, and then we'd watch MASH. That was our nightly routine. And I just became fascinated by news and information, and I was such a history buff. I would watch the Sunday shows. I was that kid. I would do the crossword puzzle and watch the Sunday shows. I was watching Meet the Press and the McLaughlin Group, and I was into all of that stuff and into news. And so when I went back to Harvard, I had to decide what I could major in that's something I would actually enjoy. So I wound up in the Visual Environmental Studies department, which is basically the documentary film department. It was sort of the closest thing to movies and film and the stuff that I'd been inspired by. But when I left Harvard, I went through sort of a few permutations of things to do, but when I got pregnant the second time with Jason, my second child, we moved to Florida, and I needed to get a job. My Spanish wasn't really good enough for me to continue doing what I was doing in New York, so I needed to figure out a job I could love. So I just started writing letters to local TV stations.
Did you type these letters or just write them?
I typed them. I typed the letters, all right. And I sent them. I sent one to WSVN, which was the Fox affiliate in Miami, because I'm like, I'm just going to do something I love. I'm moving to a whole new city. I had the chance to start over, have whatever career I want. I love news. I'm a news junkie. Let me just see if they'll hire me. So I wrote a one-line note to WSVN, the Fox affiliate, and it said, I really love, actually your entertainment show. I really love your 6 o'clock entertainment show. Would you hire me as a producer, please? With a question mark. And they actually wrote me back. And they didn't hire me for the entertainment show, but they hired me for $7.25 an hour to be an associate producer on their morning news show. Wow. So I ended up taking that job. It paid so little that I took a second job at Burdine's department store as a copywriter, writing copy for fine jewelry and intimate apparel. So I was doing both jobs at the same time. Intimate apparel and fine jewelry. And the way I wound up getting caught is that the Plex, they called it the Newsplex in Miami, was very infested with very big flying bugs, big roaches about that big, and I have a bug phobia. So one day I'm sitting in the Plex writing I used to write the kickers, like the funny line at the end of the 7 o'clock hour. I'm writing my kicker, and one of these bugs ran across my desk. I jumped up and screamed and ran away. And you could, when you were watching the shows, we were like sitting down below, and you could only see the anchors, but if you stood up, you were visible. And my bosses at Burdine's were watching the news that morning and saw me get up and run, and they caught me, and I got pulled into the office. I got in big trouble when I got to work.
Okay.
And I had to tell them, I hate to break it to you, but you're the moonlighting job, not them.
All right. So you're the first black woman to host a primetime news program. What kinds of pressures did you feel in that role that might have been different? That's a high-pressure job. But what kind of pressures did you feel that you had to deal with that maybe your male colleagues didn't have to deal with, that your white colleagues didn't have to deal with?
That's a great question. And when I took over that primetime spot, it was Chris Matthews' show. So there was also pressure. This was the longest running show on MSNBC, was Hardball. And it was also a show I was a huge fan of. So first I had to be the stepmother to my new team, because I'm stepping into a team that was already formulated and already had a way that they worked, and I had to fit in, which was easy because I had been basically Chris Matthews' sidekick. You know, I had been on his show a lot. I had guest hosted for him, so I knew some of them pretty well. But the pressures that I faced as opposed to Chris Matthews, I mean, we couldn't have been more different in a lot of ways, is number one, when you are a woman in media, you can't just show up how you're showing up. There's a whole hair and makeup thing that you have to do, right? The way you show up gets very harshly critiqued. And I
didn't just show up like this. I mean, I had to, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you look amazing. You look amazing. You look fabulous. But for me, I mean, I also just look like this. I'm not wearing makeup. I just look like this. No, I just wake up like this every morning. I take a deep breath and go, oh, I'm pretty. No, I have hair and makeup. Weirdly enough, I know that it seems like a shallow thing to lead with, but it becomes a huge stressor. And I was a tomboy. I was not a makeup and hair person. I didn't even know how to do it. But there was also this issue of there were almost no black people in the hair and makeup room. And so the first year that I started doing TV, my hair was falling out, my skin was breaking out, because I didn't really wear makeup, so my skin was sort of like virgin skin that was getting all this heavy makeup on it. I was breaking out. So I had a lot of like self-image issues, right? Trying to just be on TV every day. So just getting into TV, that was one of the issues. But in terms of the primetime piece, there's also the pressure of being the first and people triple scrutinizing everything I said. Right. And people presuming bias because I'm not white and I'm not a man. And so every story gets scrutinized by the other side through this lens of, well, you must be biased against men and against white people. And I got that doubly because I'd been on TV for a while and was already a target for Fox, and those folks over there, they love to target me. So once I was in primetime, the targeting was even worse. So dealing with the targeting, dealing with the presumptions and all of those things becomes it's different for a woman, and a black woman especially.
All right, you're a great journalist, you're a great writer, you've done documentaries. What is it that drew you to Medgar and Myrlie Evers? And now everybody should buy this book. This book is spectacular. It's a New York Times bestseller. And as a good West Indian, you know, she has to do more than one job. And so this is great. But what is it that drew you to these two people?
Murley. Miss Murley drew me to her. I interviewed her actually when I had my weekend show, AM Joy. She was a guest on the show. We flew out to LA, and she and Maxine Waters and I were they were my panel. And I had interviewed her remotely, but I'd never met her before. And so this was our first time meeting. She actually brought a New York Times article about me and asked me to sign it, which I was like, oh my God, she knows who I am. I'm falling out of the chair. And she was so sweet, but we got into this conversation about marriage, because she was asking about Jason, asking about my husband. And when I asked, and when I don't know how it came up, but she starts talking about Medgar Evers. And she says to me in her Murley Evers Williams voice, Medgar Evers was the love of my life. And she said it with such profundity that I was like, Miss Murley, you're talking about him, like, first of all, he's been dead for 60 years, and you're speaking about him like this is your new little college boyfriend that you just met. She was speaking about him in this intense way that I was like, I've never heard anybody speak about somebody with that level of intensity. And I said, you should write a book about this. And she's like, I've written enough books, my dear. There are no more books in me. And I was like, yeah, but the love story, that's your story. You gotta write that story. And she was like, absolutely not. So fast forward to like a year and a half, and I owed a book to my publisher, to HarperCollins, and I was trying to figure out what to write. I had written a very successful book about Donald Trump. It had gone on the New York Times bestseller list, but I didn't want to write about him again. I didn't want to do another Trump book. And so that story had stayed with me, and I just pitched it. I said, what about a love story, a civil rights love story? I've never read one. We always read about the individual, mainly man, and we don't really read about the sort of normal life that these civil rights leaders had. So I just wanted to write their love story, and so that's what drew me to it.
It's interesting, you say in the book, it's early on, you say, love is why this book is. Love is why this book is. What is that? What's that? What do you mean by that? I mean, we're talking about a seminal civil rights figure, and yet you weave in love into this story.
Yeah, because the reality is it's many different kinds of love. I mean, Medgar Evers could not have done what he did without Murley. Not only because she was his literal secretary at one point, and they were working as a team, but also because she was the grounding. She was like that grounder that, when you plug in a lamp, that kept everything from exploding. He was fighting the Klan. He was at the top of their hit list. He was fighting white sheriffs who were there to hurt him, not protect him. He was fighting a white citizens council that controlled all of the businesses in town, and a spy agency that was effectively controlling Mississippi, and even using some black pastors and black newspapermen to spy on the NAACP. He's fighting this huge fight, but she is what's grounding him, and their love gets him through what he's doing. Her love for him is the only reason she put up with him being in civil rights. She wanted him to just be an insurance salesman and be quiet, but he wasn't willing to do that. But her love for him kept her in the game, and also caused her to hunt his killer for 30 years until she got justice for her husband. But also, what I discovered in doing the research for the book and interviewing not just Miss Murley and their friends on their block, we interviewed the kids that were on the block, that are now adults. We discovered how much Medgar Evers loved Mississippi. And there has to be a certain amount of love for your state and your country, even as a black man in that era, for you to fight that fight. Because you weren't fighting to save a country that you didn't love. He went off to war because he wanted adventure. He was a young man. He wanted that liberation. But he also loved America. He was a true patriot, and he loved Mississippi. There were many times when Murley, proposed that they move out, that they move to Chicago, where so many Mississippians moved to. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to be there. He wanted to save that state, because he said, rather than drive me out, they need to change, so this is a good place for me and my children.
The Martin Luther King, John Lewis, Malcolm X, these are all seminal figures, as I described Medgar Evers as a seminal figure in the civil rights movement. Why is Medgar Evers not as well known as those others are? And why isn't Mrs. Evers as widely known, given all the things that she did, both during his life and after he was assassinated?
It's interesting. I always put it down to the horror of 1963. I mean, this is the year when Vivian Malone, has the stand at the schoolhouse door where the literal governor is stopping her from going into the University of Alabama. It's also the year of the March on Washington. It's the year of the Birmingham church bombing. So many things happened in that year that I think Medgar Evers got sort of overwhelmed. You had that student movement that was happening in Mississippi that people really don't understand how much he was a part of training those young people, those students that were doing everything from the bus rides for freedom, all of that. He's training those young people. He was one of the people that trained the young Cheney, Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney. Young Cheney was one of Medgar Evers' disciples. He was the person that in high school was training with him. So I think he gets written out of the picture because 1963 was so overwhelming, and also because he was such a low-key guy. He was doing this stuff behind the scenes so that people weren't seeing what part he played in so many of the seminal events of that time. I mean, you know, one of the stories I tell in the book is how when Dr. King gave his speech at the March on Washington, he was giving a version of a speech that he'd already given in Detroit. And in Detroit, when he'd given the speech, he had said, you know, that he dreamed of a world in which Medgar Evers and Emmett Till could grow to old age. You know, he'd actually spoken about him, and you know, his assassination was one of the things that inspired the organization of the March. So I think, unfortunately, he got overwhelmed by the events of that year and of that era.
Okay. One thing I think that people need to understand and remember is that Vivian Malone integrates the University of Alabama, June 11th, 1963. And it's just a few hours later, in the early morning of June the 12th, that Medgar Evers is assassinated. So we go from triumph to tragedy over the course of just a few hours. He displayed great courage. She displayed great courage. You have displayed great courage, and that's why you're the recipient of this award. In this time, in this America, what do you think courage looks like?
I think, and I would never mention myself in that list of people. I think, I mean, if you think about the things that Medgar Evers was doing.
Should.
Well,
you
I
should.
appreciate you. Thank you. You're very kind. But, you know, there are different kinds of courage, right? I mean, what Medgar Evers had that people like, I'll just say our current national leader, could never understand.
The present occupant of the White House.
The present occupant of the White House. He could never understand physical courage. So Medgar Evers had physical courage. That's one kind of true courage. I think Vivian Malone had physical courage, to face your enemy physically. I think there's moral courage, which, you know, Dr. King had both, right? Physical courage and moral courage. There are different kinds of courage. There's an intellectual courage. You know, you think about Ta-Nehisi Coates, who, you know, despite everything that people have said to try to force him to walk away from his moral rectitude on things like Gaza, he just refuses to do it, right? So I think there are different kinds of courage. And I think in this era, particularly African Americans, Black folks, have got to decide, you know, which kind of the historic courage that we've always shown in all of those areas we need to lean into. And the reason I say that is that throughout the history of this country, Black Americans have exhibited both moral, intellectual, and physical courage at all times, throughout all of the sort of cycles of this country's development. But in this era, what I'm looking for is my spicy white folks, the spicy whites, as I call them. It really is white America's turn to do the physical courage piece. And I say that because Black Americans have been putting their bodies on the line to try to convince this country to do the right thing and live up to its promises. But I don't know in this era whether I believe that it is fair to expect the 92% and the 80%ers to constantly display physical courage. I think what we need now is, yes, we still need the moral courage of the Black voice. We're still writing the 1619 projects, the Black AF histories that Michael Harriot wrote. We're still telling America the truth about itself, and I think we need to keep doing that and doing it loudly. I try to speak loudly about the things that I think are wrong, regardless of what somebody will say. I refuse to laud someone in death, even unfortunate death, who was immoral and who was racist and who was cruel. I just won't do it. And you won't bully me into doing it, right? So that's one kind of courage we can show. We can refuse to go along with the indefensible. But when it comes to physical courage, what I've loved seeing is white Americans being the ones to step in front of ICE and say, don't take that person. White Americans being the ones to march and be in the streets, because you don't have to take, it's not as big of a risk for you. If we're in these streets, we know what they're gonna do to us. because they've done it to us every single time for 249 years, and even before that, from 1619 on. So I think that we need to start dividing the work. To the wonderful actress who was here before, we need to divide the work. So the work for us is moral, it is verbal, it is being loud, but the work for white America, who chose this? You know, if non-white people were beamed up into a spaceship and went away, and that election was held again, you know, or white America was beamed into a spaceship and only non-white people were able to vote, the current president would not be president. Because only Latino men and white Americans voted in a majority for this. And so this was the affirmative, chest-out choice of white America, if we're being honest. There were small numbers of people of color who chose it, but the vast majority of those votes came from one community. And so I think in this moment, what I want to see and what I've been happy to see is white Americans step forward and say, it's our turn. It's our turn to show the physical courage to change this country.
All right. Law firms, corporate America, universities have not necessarily shown great courage in this era. What do you think that's about? I mean, how do you analyze that lack of courage?
That's an understatement. Like, they've not, it's been shameful. What you've seen, this capitulation. I mean, what's the point of being a billionaire if you have to grovel before the President of the United States? You know, what's the point? You've gotten that rich and you're still on your knees groveling, canceling popular programs because one man can't take a joke. Pathetic. I think what we've seen is the cowardice, the absolute cowardice of these billionaires, of these corporate leaders. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing. And it's it's giving 1930s. Because, you know, the big businessmen in Germany, when they saw Hitler's rise, they said, we can manage him. We can still get the things we need. And what I think this is about is greed. I think that these people have business they want to do, and the business is before this government. And so they've decided that they will crawl on their bellies if they have to. They will sell their souls if they have to. They don't care what they have to do to get what they want. What you just saw with Jimmy Kimmel, what that's about is this company called Nexstar wanting to acquire a lot of stations. And they know that that decision goes through the FCC. And that Brendan Carr, who wrote the part of Project 2025 that's about warping the FCC to the needs of the Republican president and of the right, he is the one who's standing in their way. And so they'll do whatever they have to do. And so no one is safe in this environment. Whether your show is popular, high-rated, low-rated, doesn't matter. If your show offends the President of the United States, you could lose it. And I think what I would warn these executives about is there's no pleasing an autocrat. No matter how much you grovel, it's never enough. And so these universities, and I'm ashamed that Harvard started off standing up and then kowtowed. Columbia University, shameful. Georgetown has been great, by the way. God bless Georgetown. If you are obeying in advance or obeying this push toward autocracy and fascism, it'll come for you too. No one comes out ahead. No one survives it. And so I think they're wasting their time obeying, but I think in the short term, they believe they'll get what they want financially.
All right, you're a great journalist, and I'm going to give you the ability to pick, let's say, 3 people that you can interview next week. What 3 people would you want to interview? And I know one of the thing I should say, can I?
Please.
One of the people that Joy interviewed, in fact, the first journalist to interview, is the former Vice President, Kamala Harris. She did the first interview, and that will be coming up on
Tuesday. That'll be on the joyreidshow.com, on our podcast. Yeah, we just came back from interviewing Vice President Harris.
Rachel Maddow is showing hers first, but she did the first interview.
I got it first.
So beyond Kamala Harris, 3 people you'd like to interview.
Well, one person that I've always had on my bucket list to interview, well, maybe I'll make it the duo, and you might be able to help me with this one, are the Obamas. I think Barack Obama and Michelle Obama would be a fantastic interview, and I think no one really understands what's happening in the White House and how it operates more than a former president, obviously. So I would love to interview the Obamas. So, you know, holler at me, Obamas. I would love to interview them. I think they would be fascinating. I would love to sit down with, obviously, my soror and former schoolmate. We're working on it, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Because she's seeing from the inside the destruction of that court. Now, I don't know how much she could say. Amy Coney Barrett's been very open, though, and talking a lot of things and saying words that she maybe
saying words. Okay.
Yeah, saying words. Yeah. She's an interesting case study in this idea of merit, isn't it? When you put her qualifications up against Ketanji Brown Jackson, it's sort of not even close, you know? But anyway. I also think Sonia Sotomayor would be a fantastic interview. She's such a brilliant jurist, and the things that she's, warned us about are all coming true. So I think if I had to do a third one, I would probably say Sonia Sotomayor.
You're a person who I think has a clear-eyed vision of the United States, understands the history of this country. Is there a basis for optimism now? Is there, as you examine this nation in 2025, is there a part of you that thinks, we're going to be okay, things are going to get better, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I think if you are a lover of history, what you understand about history is that it is a wheel. Mm-hmm. It is never a line. Right. And that can be good and it can be bad. All the progress we made in the 20th century, I've always said that the goal of the right is to repeal the 20th century. What offends them in the whole history of this country is the 20th century. It's when we got the women's right to vote. Eventually, black women as well were included. Took a while. We got labor rights. Women were allowed out of the kitchen. White women were allowed out of the kitchen. And, well, black women, too, obviously, were working in the kitchen. You saw incredible rights, LGBTQ rights. You saw abortion rights. You saw, some movement on indigenous rights. They want to get rid of all of those things. They hate the 20th century, and they hate the war in court especially. And so the repeal of the 20th century is a goal. But the reality is the 20th century was the wheel upon which the 19th century fell, And so I think it always turns back. And what gives me hope is that I understand that we are in the bad part of the wheel, we're on the part of the cycle that's very dark. We are in the fascist phase here, but we've been there in the 1930s. We almost had a fascist president in the 1930s. There was an attempted coup against FDR. It just didn't work. And then it was buried by history. This country had slavery and Reconstruction and redemption and the 20th century. It's a wheel. And so what I would say to those who are fearful in this moment is none of these bad things will last, because they cannot last. They are not sustainable long term, and Americans are accustomed to freedom now. And so you're not going to take it from us very easily. Americans are pretty ornery about those kinds of things. And so I think it will turn back. And what I would say to those who are feeling really good about themselves in this moment, that they've conquered the left, just know that it is temporary, and that you need to understand that too. And that the things that you're doing, they may feel good in the moment, but they won't last. They won't last forever.
People ask me all the time, I'm not happy with the state of this country right now. What is it that I can do? How can I get engaged? And I always say, well, that's a good question to ask. Dr. King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But the reality is it doesn't bend on its own. It only bends when people put their hands on that arc and pull it towards justice. If you're asked that question, what can I do? What kind of advice do you give to people? Younger people, people middle-aged, people like myself who are young at heart. What do you tell folks about things they can do to impact and pull that arc towards justice?
Whenever people ask me that, I always say, do what's in your wheelhouse and in your comfort zone. If you are a person that's not in a food desert, and you have a little bit more money, a few more coins in your pocket, and you can boycott Target and boycott companies that are anti-DEI, do that, right? If what's in your wheelhouse is that you're a medical provider and you can offer free health care services to people who are losing their Medicaid and are indigent, do that. If you're a farmer and you've got a little excess and you're not completely suffering under these tariffs and you can offer food to people who need it, do that. Do whatever is in your wheelhouse. If you are able to read to children who are being denied opportunity to read school books because the school books have a black child in them or have a little gay character in them, and you can just read to kids, do that. So I think what you should do is look in your own life at what your capacity is and do something. The only option when you're in a moment like this is to do nothing. Doing nothing is the only crime here, right? And just sitting back and watching it happen. One of the things that Charles Evers says when I was doing the book, in one of his books that I quoted, is he said, and this was at the time, think with this in the context, he said there are 3 kinds of white people that they grew up around. There were the white folks who would kill you just as soon look at you. There were the nice white people who would, try to go out of their way to help you. And then there were the bigger group, who are the people who would just watch it happen and do nothing. And those people are in many ways the worst, because it's wrong and you're just not doing anything about it. So I would say I can't counsel people specifically what to do. If your capability is marching, march. If your capability is interrupting somebody, grabbing somebody, some poor dishwasher, or Home Depot person out of Home Depot, and you're a white person that you have the privilege of being able to yell at the police and them not kill you, do that. Film people. If your capacity is, I have a phone and I can film something that I see is wrong, and they're kidnapping someone off the street, and you see these masked men and you can film it, do that and post it. If your thing is all I have is the capacity because I'm afraid of losing my job, because I can only do certain things, do your own boycott. You don't have to keep your Paramount Plus. I canceled mine this morning. I was like, you don't want to, right? Paramount, you want to mess up CBS? I'm not going to give you my money. Withhold your money from people who are doing the wrong thing. Do what's in your capacity. Just don't do nothing.
Okay. You continue to be a guiding force, a great voice in this nation. What's next for you? Well, before that, you have tons of fans here. You have tons of fans all around the nation. Where do we find you now? Let's just a bit of a commercial now. Give me all the places that I can find Joy Reid now.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, you can find me mainly at thejoyreidshow.com. That is our YouTube channel. That is where you will find the Kamala Harris interview on Tuesday. And we go Monday, Wednesday, Friday live. And then we do post a lot of specials and special interviews. And hopefully special interviews soon with Attorney General Holder and with Dr. Malone. I'm booking while I was backstage. I was booking them. So we interview incredible people. And we try to do that show 3 days a week. And then we have lots of bonus episodes. I'm also on Substack at joyanreid.com, which we call Joy's House. That's where you can find my writing and all sorts of other great stuff. Our company, Jason and my company, Image Lab Media Group, we actually executive produce a bunch of projects and help other filmmakers to get their projects to the ground, to the finish line. There's a great film called When America Swims, which is really fantastic. It's about the whole history of swimming in America and the racial aspects and others. So you can just go to joyanreid.com and you'll see all my stuff. You'll find it there.
All right. So she's all over the place. Find her. All right. Maybe let's end here. We have this really talented group of young people here. I'd like you to speak to them and charge them. What is their responsibility? What should they be doing in the days and months and years to come?
Yeah. I mean, what I would say to young people is before charging you is, our generations owe you an apology. And we genuinely do. When I was your age, we could afford things, and my sort of best years of my young adulthood or young adulthood were in the Clinton era. We had plenty of money. We didn't need 10 roommates to have an apartment. And we were the first free generation. As Generation Xer, we were born free, My sister, she had a little bit of experience with busing, but not a lot. We were born able to go to the schools we wanted to. We didn't have to deal with desegregation. So we weren't trained to run a civil rights movement. We didn't need one. Really. We grew up in this age when we had the abundance and the ability to do whatever we wanted. We believed we could be anything. We did give y'all hip hop, so you're welcome. So, we gave y'all that. Don't ever forget. And the internet. We're sorry about that a little bit. But we didn't train our children. We didn't train the next generation, the millennials and the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha. We didn't train y'all to have to deal with a civil rights movement or to need one. We weren't trained for it, and we didn't train you for it. So you guys are walking into this very blindsided. The lack of opportunity and the lack of hope that I hear from so many young people who can't afford their lives, who are buried in college debt, who can't see their way past that debt, and just the basic things that and hope that you all should have. This era is denying that to you. COVID denied that to you. COVID was a hopeless era for you all. It took so much from you. So I think our generations didn't really prepare you for what you're going to have to do. And I hate that you all have to inherit a country that is so deeply flawed that it is choosing to walk into fascism. That is horrifying. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. I will sadly say that Generation X, as a generation, voted in the majority for this. And I'm sad about it. But unfortunately, we don't get to choose the era in which we're born, and we don't get to choose our circumstances. Ida B. Wells just wanted to live her life, not have to fight lynchers and have to write about lynching. I'm sure that it was painful for her to have to steep herself in the story of lynching all the time, but she had to do it. And so what you all, unfortunately, are charged to do is what our ancestors had to do. You're going to have to fight for an America that deserves you. You're going to have to fight to make this country worthy of you. And it is going to be a fight. It is not going to be easy. It is not going to be handed to you, because there is an equal and opposite force on the other side. There is wickedness. We're in church on today. So I'm going to just be honest. There is evil in the world, Pastor. Evil is real. And evil is aggressive. And evil doesn't sleep. It has insomnia. It doesn't get tired. It sprints like the zombies in World War Z. And it never stops. But what you have to do is what they do in those zombie apocalypse movies. They could all just give up and walk into the zombie apocalypse and let themselves become zombies too, but they never do. You ever notice that Rick and them in The Walking Dead, they never stop. It's 6 of them. They fight 3 million zombies, right? I like zombie movies, I'm sorry. Sorry, Pastor. And so you all are fighting a kind of a zombie apocalypse. And I'll very quickly, before I go, I'll tell this story that I told. I was at the Progressive Caucus. I did a thing with the Progressive Caucus, and I told them about this nightmare I had when I was about 12 years old. And I've never forgotten it. It's the most memorable nightmare I've ever had. And I think about it a lot in this era, is I'm asleep and I smell smoke in my house. This is my dream, in my nightmare. And I wake up and I realize my house is on fire. And I run to my mom's room and go to try to get her. Mom, my house is on fire. We got to run. And she turns to me and she's a zombie. I mean, she's a vampire. Sorry, she's a vampire. I'm like, oh my God, my mom is a vampire. So I run into my baby brother's room. I wake him up. Come on, Oren, we got to go. And I go get my sister. I'm like, we got to run. The house is on fire and mom is a zombie. We're trying to get away. We're trying to get out. We're trying to get to the door. And I turn around. My sister's falling behind. I turn around, and she's now a vampire. So I have my little brother, and I'm like, oh, my God, we got to hide. We're not going to make it to the front door. So we go to hide, and we duck down behind a couch. And we're waiting for the coast to be clear. The coast is clear. Now we're going to sprint for the door. I turn around, and my brother's a zombie, too. And I wake up screaming. I literally woke up screaming. In the night, Eric Holder, I woke up screaming, and my mom and everybody runs the room. What is wrong with you? I'm like crying and I'm bawling. I'm like, everyone's a zombie and the house is on fire. I'm trying to explain this to them. To me, that is America right now. The house is on fire. The Supreme Court is a zombie. The corporations, are a vampire. The Supreme Court is a vampire. They're vampires. The majority of them are anyway. Ketanji trying her best, but she and Sonia are like, what are we doing? We're trying. And Kagan, the three of them are like, what are we doing? But they're vampires. The corporations are vampires. They're getting rid of Jimmy Kimmel. They're vampires. The billionaires are definitely vampires. It's like sinners. Don't open the door.
Well, separate and apart from your societal analogies,
vampires.
I think that maybe you should get a professional to analyze that dream of yours. I mean, this is what we expect, because you're great. And I asked you a question about talking to the young people. And one of the things I'd say is that, the advice you gave I thought was really good, but I think that is applicable to all of us. And it's not one thing to say, if I lived in 1963 and I were Murley Evers, or if I was Medgar Evers, I was Vivian Malone, this is what I would have done. The question is, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do today? And I think the advice that you shared, the observations that you have made are good guides for how we get through this difficult period. I'm still relatively optimistic. Optimism, I think, breeds engagement. Pessimism, I think, tends to breed acceptance, potentially, capitulation, and that's the last thing that we need to do. And with great voices like yours, with great leaders like you are, I think we turn out on the other side of this in a relatively good place.